Alrighty. Hey, if everyone else who isn't a sponsor, if you can make your way to a seat, and everyone in the crowd, give us just a minute to go over sponsors. Yes, I'm talking to you, the one talking. All right. So, hey, thank you so much for coming out. And first thing we do, if you're new to Tab, the Atlanta blockchain, we go over sponsors. So let me just quickly run through who these people are. Hide.me, it's a VPN service. They accept cryptocurrency. If you go to our meetup page, you can save 35% if you want to use our code. This is, if you want to be a little bit more anonymous when you're using your VPN service, you don't have to tie a credit card to your VPN account. So I highly recommend Hide.me. I've been using them for quite a while. Edge, it's our official wallet sponsor of the meetup. They even support stuff like Monero. So this is a pretty versatile wallet. Supports all kinds of coins, including Bitcoin, Monero, and some others. Check them out. I think they support just about everything. Do we have anyone here from Bitcoin Depot? I'm just curious. They're probably not here yet. Okay. Bitcoin Depot, they have, I think last time I heard, 157 Bitcoin ATMs. That's a company founded here out of Atlanta. You probably have one within a mile or two of your house, and you just don't know it, if you don't know one exists. If you go to coinatmradar.com or something like that, you can see all the Bitcoin Depot ATMs in your area. Make sure to check them out if you want Bitcoin really quick. If you buy less than $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, all you need is a phone number. So very, light on the KYC kind of stuff, which is kind of interesting. Let's see, who else? Protecting Coin, we'll go over them later. Did people get a red ticket? Okay, cool. He's going to be raffling off a piece of hardware, so we'll do that at the very end. We'll go over Protecting Coin. And let me hand it off. Let's start with some of the sponsors that are here in person. So we'll start with Gino's Barber with Alex. Come on up.
Thank you. And try to keep it under 10 minutes. Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here. We love sponsoring the effort that Tab and Mike and team are behind. So we got into Bitcoin around 2013. We started accepting Bitcoin 2014. And it wasn't because anyone was knocking our door down saying, please take my crypto. We want to spend and buy a haircut with Bitcoins. It was really a way for us, coming from the financial services space, spending 20 years there, realizing that this is it. Like, oh my God, this is going to be something amazing. So Barry Silbert turned us on to BitPay, and we started accepting Bitcoins. And it's our way of just voting for the future of money, for the future technology that I feel will take over a lot of what we do and how we interact with each other. So with that in mind, think of any business owners in the room who are contemplating accepting Bitcoins, and just let them know that it's a vote for the future. And I think from a chicken or the egg perspective, I feel personally that merchants who accept Bitcoin will help lay the foundation for a critical mass adoption when it happens. For a place for people to spend it, you've got to create a place for people to spend it. So anyone familiar with Venezuela's current economic situation? Yeah, it's a catastrophe. So a lot of people are moving from Venezuela to Colombia, and a lot of Colombian merchants are starting to accept Bitcoin. Why? Because the Venezuelans are coming saying, I've got this Dash, or I've got Bitcoin, I want to spend it. So it's kind of creating a nice intersection of supply and demand. So we're hoping that through raising the awareness and just saying, look, I accept Bitcoin not because everyone's using it, but really to vote for a better way of doing business. And I don't want to pay 3% to Visa, MasterCard anymore. So help us with that. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Next up, we'll go over PKM. Thank you.
Hustle. Hey guys, my name is Andrew. I work for PKM, Porter Cato Moore. It's the blue triangle right there. We are a full-service CPA advisory accounting firm located downtown. Over the last year and a half or so, we've taken a deep dive into blockchain and cryptocurrency And our firm's looking at it from kind of 4 different aspects: regulatory compliance, it's your KYC, BSA, AML type of stuff. We're doing accounting, your general financial reporting. We're looking at it from a systems, internal control, as well as financial reporting, internal control perspective. And then obviously taxes. That's not only individual tax returns, but corporate tax returns, as well as looking to see if companies are eligible for R&D credits and things like that. So if any of that interests you, if you're a company or a startup in this space, feel free to reach out to me or find me. Alrighty, thanks.
Hey, thank you. Next up was, please have BitPay come up. BitPay, yeah. We'll have Founders Legal last, yeah. They're going to do a legal update. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm James. We've probably already met before, but good to see so many familiar faces again. BitPay is building the platform for Bitcoin payments because we believe Bitcoin and blockchain are the future of how payments can and should work, like Alex mentioned. We build everything from merchant payment processing acceptance tools, like Junos uses and Microsoft uses, all the way down to a wallet which consumers and individuals can use to secure their funds, spend their funds. One thing we're excited about is the BitPay card. Some of you guys were here last month. We're doing another giveaway tonight, so come on up if you want to get a BitPay card afterward. Just during the talk, or if you're got your phone, you can go to bitpay.com/card and fill out the order form. When you've done that, we'll pay your order fee for you. Just come on up to the table back there. For the month of December, we're giving away for $1. And for those of you who don't know, this card is just a great way to turn your Bitcoin to dollars if you can't use Bitcoin directly somewhere, if you need cash for Bitcoin, if you're buying some Christmas presents this month, and for whatever reason, they don't accept Bitcoin yet because they're not enlightened like all of you guys are. So thanks again for your time. Thanks, Michael, for having us here. Very excited to see who the mystery guest is. It's not me, is it? Okay.
Yeah. It's. I hope we figure out. I hope he or she shows up soon because I'm starting to get nervous. Anyways, next up, and with a legal update, Founders Legal. So what we're doing with Founders Legal is they get a very brief minute to give a legal update as well. So, Yuri, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. We're Founders Legal. We're upstairs here at the ATV. We're a group of technologists, engineers, and scientists on the patent front, lawyers, and entrepreneurs, corporate attorneys in our corporate practice. So we service technology companies. We're a proud sponsor here, and we do a legal minute update for the past few sessions. This one is kind of funny. So I'll start out by saying in November of 2017, the SEC issued a warning that anyone, including celebrities or other promoters, using social media to encourage the purchase of securities may be in violation of certain laws if they don't disclose the nature, source, and the amount of any compensation paid directly or indirectly to them in exchange for the promotion or endorsement. So that was November in 2017. I'm not going to report you. It's all right. Geno's is off the hook. So on November of 2018, that's exactly a year later, funny story, you guys heard of Floyd Mayweather, I bet, and another producer, DJ Khaled. They were promoting a ICO, initial coin offering, called Centra Tech. And so they were promoting it to the public. Well, the SEC hammered Mayweather. He failed to disclose promotions for 2 other ICOs, amounting to a total of $200,000 in promotional fees that he earned. Well, for that $200,000, Mayweather must pay $300,000 in disgorgement, $300,000 in penalties, and $15,000 in interest, as well as being barred from promoting any security offerings for the next 3 years. Khaled, right? DJ Khaled. Khaled? He got $50,000 for promotion, and of course, he's got to pay over $150,000 in penalties. So keep in mind, if you're promoting someone else's ICO, and you're getting paid for it, you got to disclose that. That's the legal update. And of course, yeah. Oh, I get it. That was a good one. So the SEC is one entity involved here. The Federal Trade Commission has similar rules and issued similar statements that, hey, to protect consumers, we're going to begin enforcing a similar penalty. So to protect consumers and your grandma. All right, so thank you, guys.
So I think Yuri purposely said DJ Khaled's name wrong to look smarter. Just saying. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. You know, yeah. You wore the glass, you know. But so Yuri, thank you so much for the update. Appreciate it. So I quickly want to go over our last sponsor up here, Tyrion. That's the company I work for, like Tyrion Lannister, if you've watched Game of Thrones. This is a company that helps put data outside of the Bitcoin blockchain onto the Bitcoin blockchain with some anchoring it with the trustlessness and the mutability of Bitcoin. So kind of piggybacking on what Bitcoin provides and anchoring in data outside of the blockchain. So you can do this to pretty much any business process. This is pretty dynamic. If you're a developer, or if you think you've come up with a use case where you want to prove if something hasn't been tampered with, and you want to prove the integrity and time of it, so this is one of the best time stamping services in the world, has a lot of throughput, let me know. This is, in my opinion, the best way to blockchainify an existing application with very low friction. So I believe that's all the sponsors, and like I said, we'll go over Protecting Coin at the very end and do a raffle, so make sure to stay for that. Shill what? Shill what? Dude, it's on the slides. Chill. Dude, stay chill. Chill out, bro. Chill out. Bro, chill out. All right. So first shill of the day is the Atlanta Bitcoin Embassy. So I'm a co-founder of this. This is a cool place where every Wednesday that we don't have a meetup here, you can come to the Atlanta Bitcoin Embassy. Feel free to Google that. We're in Midtown off of Peachtree Street. We're at a WeWork. We have mixers on Wednesdays. We have alcohol. We have good conversations, a lot of philosophy and Bitcoin and blockchain type conversations going on there. It's a lot of fun. If you're not doing anything on Wednesdays, we'll be having these mixers here. Make sure to check for the holiday schedule, though, close to Christmas. I believe we're going to meet even on the Wednesdays going up to Christmas. So if you want to drop by and hang out with us, that'd be great. This is information on our Telegram groups and our Twitter. So right now we are live streaming. If you want to go to ATL_blockchain and retweet that and like it, that will get the word out there about the meetup today. Our Telegram groups are Atlanta Blockchain. If you don't know what Telegram is, it's pretty much the messaging app that's like the new messaging app everyone's using. You just have to download it because that's how the world works apparently. So Telegram, download it, get it on your phone and your computer, and it'll consume your life just like everyone else who has it in this room. Atlanta Blockchain is our main Telegram group. If you want to join that, it's focused on the meetup. Tab Dev is going to be focused for real deep level discussions and very technical topics. And then Tab Shill is for everything else, and you can promote your brand there. You can network with people. That's for like everything else. Just a fun group that we have in Tab Shill. Tab Dev is also how we coordinate the Mastering in Bitcoin book reading club. So we meet periodically, and we go one chapter at a time. Right now, we're on chapter 7. So make sure to check us out. I think the next time we're meeting, let's see, this is January 3rd. That's the next meetup that we have because we're kind of taking a break for the holidays. So we meet at the Bitcoin Embassy to have this, so make sure to check that out. We also, starting in January, we're going to run 4 workshops, maybe 5 if you're lucky. But it's going to start with power user, like how to really hold secure and be cautious with your cryptocurrency, how to buy, sell, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll go all the way to like developer level where we're making transactions from scratch. We're using stuff like the Chainpoint protocol. We're doing Lightning Network workshops where we're sending testnet Lightning transactions to each other and understanding how to run a node and how that stuff works and payment channels. So check out the workshops. We're going to start that in January. If you're interested, make sure to join Tab Dev. And then this is an example of it's also on meetup.com. We have the 10-year celebration of Bitcoin happening on January 5th, and that is a Saturday. And that's through Bitcoin Atlanta. And make sure you join that meetup group. If you have to join 2 meetup groups, make sure to join this one. Obviously, you're here. And okay, well, okay. 3, sorry. There's a bunch. You have to join all of them. Join all the meetup groups on meetup.com. There's at least 80, yes. Okay. Protecting Coin Raffle. So that's going to be at the end. Tonight, after this meetup, so in about an hour, we're going to leave here and we're going to go to Twin Peaks. We have the second floor reserved. We're going to go up there and chat, drink, eat. We can stay there as long as we want, pretty much. But we have to get out of here around 8 o'clock. TabConf, this is a conference that we're throwing in February. Make sure to get your ticket. Ticket prices are going to go up for TabConf. So if you want to get your ticket in December, that's the best time. It's a 2-day conference. You get a T-shirt. You get a physical Boolean fine copper coin that's collectible. It's going to be great. There's like 40 speakers flying in. This is going to be a really good 2-day conference. It's all like $80, $90. So make sure you get your ticket before the prices get hiked up. Okay, so that is the presentation. And I'm going to put it back on the sponsorship slide. All right, so let's see. I'm trying to see if the mystery speaker is here. Oh, you're right, yes. Please, a quick round of applause for ATV for the venue space. Thank you. And thank you, Skip. Thank you, Skip. All right. So, I want to take a seat. So, if I told y'all need to get a close seat. I'm really short. You won't be able to see me. But what I want everyone to do, since it doesn't look like the mystery speaker is actually here, what I want everyone to do is I want us all to close our eyes. I want us all to close our eyes and feel the power of Satoshi. And if you feel like you are that person, let it come to you naturally, and see if it is you. And hopefully, when we open our eyes, but not yet, we will witness a miracle. Okay, everyone, please open your eyes. And
Where do I do this? I can't even.
there you go.
DJ Colin.
Wait, no, you have to give it a second.
Hello.
So-
Oh, there we go. If someone called me DJ Khaled, that would be close to accurate. I saw, what's that? Yeah, I saw some other people being moved by the Holy Spirit. You are not the guest speaker. Sorry. I am.
One phrase here, and I'm looking at the guy who kind of helped me coin this phrase. He might have a man bun. There's something that's kind of been coined as the Tidwell Gauntlet here in Atlanta, and people maybe have been wondering what makes this guy so salty about every blockchain project that is brought to this kid, and really, the Tidwell Gauntlet was really inspired by a different gauntlet that existed before the Tidwell Gauntlet, created by this man right here, and this man, his name is Junseth. That is his username. That is his given name, his God-given name.
My mom gave it to me. My name is Junseth. I am the former co-host to Bitcoin Uncensored, and now have my own podcast called Junseth's World. I don't know if all of you are listeners or were listeners to Bitcoin Uncensored, but basically it was a long-running podcast about sort of just news in the space, and we tell a lot of fart jokes and other vulgarities and such. But for the most part, it was like basically us looking at projects and discussing whether we thought they were viable or not, and sort of philosophizing stupidly about how blockchains work and what they do. So what's fun for me is that like I look at in the modern context of Bitcoin, what I see is a lot of the culture of modern Bitcoin. I see remnants of like the Bitcoin Uncensored that we were doing. So some of the memes and just some of the words we use and stuff like that. So, but one of the things that we would talk about would be called the Bitcoin Uncensored Challenge, which would be people basically listening to all of the shows from beginning to end. But yeah, that's kind of my little thing. That's how I ended up here today. Is apparently I inspired Mike to be salty and pissy about blockchain projects.
You've ruined my life. And
yours,
everyone
yeah,
else
probably.
is involved with me. So the idea is for 10 minutes, 1 minute, an hour, however long we go, until people start nodding off. We're going to have a little fireside chat. You're going to get to know who this guy is because I think it's important. It's important to know who some of the original thought leaders in the Bitcoin and blockchain space were and why they've come to some conclusions about projects and ideas. And I think you'll find this very interesting. And then you'll make sure to talk to this guy afterwards at Twin Peaks and after the event too. So we'll go for a little bit and then we can break after that, and we'll just have a nice little friendly fireside chat, and we'll probably do a little bit of Q&A. So first thing I want to do is go a little bit more deeper
Sure.
into who you are. So you said you're a former co-host of Bitcoin Uncensored, but really give us some history. Like when did you get into Bitcoin?
So I've been doing Bitcoin since 2010, about a week or about a month after the pizza was bought. So do you guys all know what the pizza was? The pizza event, May 19th. So there was a pizza in Bitcoin bought by a guy down in Florida named Laszlo, and he bought a pizza. I think it was for 10,000 Bitcoins. 2 pizzas, correct? Yeah. So he paid somebody, and they made a phone call and paid by credit card. So it was a little bit of cheating.
It's the only way to do it back then.
It really was the only way to do it. So that 10,000 Bitcoins. If you don't know what the pizza is, that same event many years later, when Bitcoin Cash split from Bitcoin, was reenacted by me and Mr. Tidwell here when we made our first purchase in Bitcoin Cash, which we did instead of using a credit card. I paid him in Bitcoin Cash, and he had to send Bitcoin to a pizza joint down in Florida.
So the funny part so check this out. Back in the day, you used a credit card, and then he was reimbursed with Bitcoin. So what we did for this pizza place, same idea. I was going to, pay for it and with a credit card, and then he was going to reimburse me with Bitcoin Cash. It would be the first Bitcoin Cash payment. It was just kind of like a symbolic, funny thing because we want to do it like the first day Bitcoin Cash kind of forked off. So it was not 10,000 Bitcoin Cash.
It wasn't 10,000, no.
No.
It was only 1,000.
But
Bitcoin Cash has no value.
Okay, well, you can kind of see where this is going already. But the funny part is the pizza place next to his house accepted Bitcoin.
Which was weird. It was a coincidence. None of us knew that.
So I paid in Bitcoin. So it went kind of full circle. Now the normal payment, instead of paying with credit card, was I paid in Bitcoin, and he reimbursed me in Bitcoin Cash.
And it was hard because like the first few days, the Bitcoin Cash network was so gummed up that it wouldn't work. So it took me about a week to really pay you in that instant paying system. But it was kind of an amazing. It's kind of funny though, like where we've come, because if you look at it, like back then, there was this like weird system of money that was so valueless that like someone would pay $10,000 or 10,000 Bitcoins for a pizza or 2 pizzas, and many years later, now that sort of shitty cash is being accepted by pizza joints that aren't so far from where that original pizza was bought, and in exchange, in order to accomplish that, now instead of like sending back Bitcoin in order to pay for the pizza, you can pay for the pizza in Bitcoin, then I can send someone shitcoins.
Wow, shots
No,
fired.
it is amazing though, like that the crypto space exists enough that we can do that, and that there are places that do accept these other like cryptocurrencies, whether it's Bitcoin or any of the other stuff.
Obviously, Junseth loves Bitcoin.
Love it.
Bitcoin Cash, that is. He's just
Big fan.
Big fan of Bitcoin Cash, obviously. Now, one of the things that Junseth has since being into Bitcoin since 2010, he has a lot of really interesting stories that we probably don't know about. Would you want to just share some of those interesting stories with us?
Sure. I mean, like any in particular?
Well, You can, maybe some of the early Silk Road stuff or some of the.
Sure.
40,
So you know what? So like the last year, like all of us went through this like big bubble. How many of you guys have been in Bitcoin before like another bubble? Like I know that it's been a long time since before this last one. So I see about what 5 or 6.
Pretty much. Who was in 2013 or earlier is what he's
Basically
asking.
2013.
Yeah.
So there's very few of you. So I mean, this bubble was interesting for I think a lot of us who've been here for a long time because I look back at the history of Bitcoin. You know, I've been here for a while, and Bitcoin is like replete with this sort of weird bubble mentality sort of cycle where, you know, Bitcoin rises, it goes way up, and then Bitcoin crashes, it comes way down, and everybody says that it's dead. So I remember, I don't know how many of you remember the Chuck Schumer event, but, you know, Representative Chuck Schumer goes on TV. This is in the middle of when Silk Road was sort of at its height. Chuck Schumer goes on TV and he announces that there's this terrible thing called Bitcoin. And that you can buy drugs on the internet with it, and it has to be stopped. So that, I mean, this is a really bad thing, right? We don't want to like go on the internet and buy drugs. We got to stop this thing. Instantly, Bitcoin starts like pumping. And it's funny because for me, like this is like lived reality, right? But like it starts pumping. And this is Bitcoin's under $1 at the time. So Chuck Schumer announces that you can buy drugs on the internet. A bunch of like 14-year-olds go online, buy as much Bitcoin as they can. It goes from like sub $1 all the way to $30. Inside of like, I don't know what it was, like a week.
So that was like a 30x increase in a week?
It was more than that because it was sub $1. So it was like less than $1 at the time.
Would you consider that the biggest pump to date? Like in terms of time frame and
it was
percent?
probably maybe the quickest, the biggest and the quickest, the shortest lived because it went to 30 and then instantly started coming right back down. It was like a 2-week long bubble, I feel like, maybe a 3-week. Maybe as much as a month, but it was quick.
Cycle was really quick.
It was very fast, and it starts coming down. Around $18 is coming down. Wikipedia announces that they're going to start accepting Bitcoin. Or not Wikipedia, WikiLeaks. And it same thing. And it it starts to march down, and it goes all the way to like $1 or $2. And it just sits there for like a really long time and starts to kind of like, sit and creep up a little bit, like year after year. And I remember it sitting at like $7 and thinking to myself, like, you know, what's funny is I remember my mentality in those days was that like, you know what? I don't really care. Like, we got some time. It's going to take the rest of the world like years to figure out what this thing is.
So speaking about, you know, bubbles and markets, how long is this bear market? Exactly, can you tell us when this bear market will last? Everyone here is pretty much just, you know, trying to figure that out. That's why they came today.
So
They're hoping Satoshi Nakamoto would tell them.
You have about 35 years before this thing like pumps again. No, you know it's fun. It's like there's no telling. Like I love chartalists. I'm sure that you guys have some in here, technical analyst people.
And those are people that look at charts.
The people that look at charts, and you know I think of chartalizing as chartalize. Well, I can make up words. Chartalizing. You know what it means. Chartalizing. I think of it as like it's like that ancient art of astrology, and you know people look at these things and they say like there's these patterns in the price. And I mean, if you know anything about random walks, I mean, like you look at a price chart, it's going to be filled with like random walks, and all you do is you move it back, and you find a series of walks that look a lot like the walk that you have today, and you extrapolate from it. That's really stupid. So I mean, it's funny to me to like look at the TA stuff that's sort of taken over the space. As Bitcoin pumped this last year, I think that was probably the biggest set of people, the biggest group of people that got a lot of plays. So I saw like large channels growing of people basically doing Bitcoin weather reports, if you will, and telling you like, today, everybody, I'm looking at the chart, like it's going to squeeze down here, and like it causes a lot of pressure. I mean, he's like literally drawing like fake lines and then saying that there's pressure at the end of those lines. It's really dumb. Like prices move because like a monkey farts in the woods and a hunter says, "Oh, that was the thing I was waiting for as a sign for whether I should sell my entire Bitcoin stack." And so he goes home and he like hits enter, and then all of a sudden Bitcoin goes like, it just drops. And everyone's like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, well, like a monkey farted. So like, I mean, it's funny to me to like watch these chart lists and the price stuff, and it's sort of new. Like we've always had them in Bitcoin, but I have never seen such a proliferation of those people, particularly in the shitcoin space, where people are like telling people what to buy, and even apart from Bitcoin, saying that making price calls and stuff with Tron and whatnot.
But let me ask you. I've heard a lot of, I would say, fairly. I don't like to use this word smart because just I know everyone's a person, but I've heard a lot of people say swing trading is a thing. Would you disagree? Would you say all TA and all, I guess you could say day trading or, even short-term trading is just kind of like gambling completely? Or
Yeah.
would you say there's any?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, the evidence is pretty clear. I mean, like, I like to tell fart jokes, but I do like sort of the intellectual side and academic side of trading. And the evidence is very clear on, like, the technical analyst stuff. It, like, given over time, you return less than the market average. You do worse than the market.
Long term, you're
Yeah, I
saying.
think over time, like long term, like years and years.
Okay, so even if you're doing TA, you might make a lot of money in a year, but then you might lose it the next year.
Well, that's the thing.
kinda
Like,
deal.
you have an equal number of people who are apparently really good at TA as there are that are people that are really bad at it. You never see the people really bad at it going out on YouTube and bragging about it.
What
But
do you think about Tone Vase? Because Tone Vase might be the most prolific TA kind of trader that I know personally.
yeah, Tone has been doing that for years. I knew Tone long before Tone was a household name.
Who here knows who Tone Vase is?
You
So-
love Tone. You think he's cute or what? He's cool. I know Tone pretty well. Like, I knew Tone before he was doing that. He's always been a chartalist. Tone Vase. I think he's taken like 0.1 bitcoins for people to go to his seminars. 0.15. He's increased the price. His advice has probably gotten better. But
Well, that would be like 33% better than.
right. I mean, but I look at that stuff. I like Tone is selling his advice. And what's funny is in a bear market, I think the chartalism might cause people to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. So, like in a market where Bitcoin's going way up, it might inspire people to buy, and they get lucky, and they think they've made a lot of money. But you know what? It's really funny. I know a lot of people that were buying all these ICOs as they were coming out, and I have yet to meet one person who will admit to me that they lost any money. Every single person I know who was buying ICOs sold at the top.
I lost money.
Yeah? Well, you're number one.
I just want to be the first person that admitted it to. All right, so you said shitcoin earlier.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Are you just trying to say like all altcoins are shitcoins, or what do you
Yeah,
mean
I
when you
tend to
say
think that anything that's not Bitcoin is on the shitcoin spectrum.
So would you say if you have that kind of opinion, like all projects besides Bitcoin are pretty much crap? What would that make you? Is that what pretty much makes you a Bitcoin maximalist, or what is that? Would you use that term?
Yeah. Well, okay. So Bitcoin maximalism is a term that was invented by Vitalik Buterin. He wrote a blog post about 8 years ago, and I hear it all the time now, which is interesting because the blog post he wrote actually occurred right after I think it was before he released Ethereum, and he was in a Skype chit chat channel where we were actually arguing with him about some of the stupidities of Ethereum, at least our perception of their stupidities. So after this argument, which gets pretty heated, he goes and he writes this piece on Bitcoin maximalists. So I've liked to say over the years that I am the first Bitcoin maximalist, or maybe the second, but one of the first couple Bitcoin maximalists. In fact, the article was written about our argument.
I mean, you can almost say Lord Vitalik knighted you.
Yeah, he did. So I mean, I guess in some ways he's given me the ability to define what Bitcoin maximalism is. So I'll tell you what my definition of Bitcoin maximalism is, and I believe that there's a probable set of events that will occur, and that Bitcoin maximalism is a bet on that most probable event, and I believe that. At the end of all of this, when everything shakes out, Bitcoin probably comes out sort of the predominant, if not the only winner in this space. And the reason I say that is because I just don't see a lot of use case for a lot of these other platforms.
You want to talk about Ethereum?
Sure.
So I know a lot of people, like there's I think several people in the crowd that are pro Ethereum, for instance. It might be interesting. Why do you think Ethereum is a bad project, and why do you think Bitcoin can't have a competitor, for instance, like that?
Okay, so I'll deal with the second one first, and then we'll move to the first one. But the reason that I think it's difficult for there to be a competitor is because largely the representation, well, what Bitcoin is it's a series of blocks created through the destruction of energy. So all of these chains essentially are competing for the same resource, right?
Which is electricity.
Yeah, you're like
Okay.
if you reduce down proof of work algorithms, you're basically all competing for the same resource. And there's no reason to have like 2 or 3 or 4 representations of that if all of them don't really do anything different. You might as well just have all of the aggregated energy moving into one single place, moving into one chain, moving into like, become the most secure, the secure chain that there is. There's no reason to have multiple sort of chains. And that's really the question is what extra benefits do these other blockchains provide? So, with Ethereum, they'll tell you that they have faster block times.
Oh, 15 seconds versus Bitcoin's 10-minute average. Yeah.
What they don't tell you is that they have 87,000 transactions in the mempool.
So speaking of which, of a congested mempool, I gave a talk yesterday on scaling blockchains and took a look at Ethereum on etherscan.io, and the current, this might be interesting for y'all, the current average transactions per block for the subset of 30 or whatever blocks are on the Etherscan page at one page at a time was 95 transactions per block. And I don't really know if there's a typical transaction in Ethereum just because there's so many complex smart contracts that potentially could go into a block and a lot of gas is expended, et cetera. But the mempool, when I looked, was like 84,000 transactions in mempool and only 95 transactions being cleared per block on average. I was like, ooh, that's actually worse than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised about that because I actually did not know that till yesterday.
Right. There's a lot of issues with it. If you were actually buying Ethereum during the height of the ICO craze, you were going to find it really difficult to actually get your transactions included in blocks. It was really hard, and nowadays there's a lot of people attempting to sync nodes, and they're finding it very, very difficult to actually sync their Ethereum nodes.
We have our first question. Why don't
Awesome.
we go ahead and
I like this.
take
If you
it?
guys have
Yeah.
questions,
Here, I'm going to just hand you the microphone.
So I find that interesting. I've seen and done a number of Ethereum transactions, and by far, both Ethereum and probably Ethereum Classic are the fastest transactions that I've never had an issue. I mean, maybe barring CryptoKitties, which I don't recall trying to send transactions during that time.
Yeah.
But arguably, and I'll be conservative, within 1 minute, transactions go through, and I have at least 2 or 3 confirmations.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are times when transactions will go through quickly, but I can tell you from my own experience that it's taken, like during the ICO stuff, it was impossible to do Ethereum transactions. Have you ever synced an Ethereum node? I mean, there's a lot of people right now who are saying that their nodes cannot sync, that Ethereum is it's inefficient to the point where they're not able to catch up, or it's taking like 2 months to catch up on their nodes. It's becoming very difficult.
Does anyone oppose that? Does anyone want to? Well, I saw your hand up first. Do you want to just come up here? Oh,
Sure. So why has Vitalik aligned himself with some of the big tech? You said big states. You mean like Russia? And what else? Well, okay. So I mean, I think this goes to the Vitalik sort of a discussion of the Vitalik that I remember. I remember Vitalik when he was writing for Bitcoin Magazine, and he was a humble.
when he was
sort
17?
of weird-looking kid. What's that?
When he was 17?
I think
it was
that-
really young
yeah.
when he was doing that, right?
I don't know why I said humble.
19? I don't know.
Though. Wasn't humble, but he was a young, weird-looking kid, and he would post on forums about himself being like a script monkey. He just kind of started learning coding, and at the time, somewhere in that time span, he began hawking a quantum mining project, which was pretty much a scam, and found to be later on, right before he wrote the Ethereum white paper. So Vitalik is out there, hawking these projects which are absolutely insanely stupid. You can go online, you can watch him talk about the quantum mining project, and you'll find that he's a young guy, extremely confident about what he's saying, extremely confident about the math that he's presenting, and you'll walk around thinking, you'll leave that thinking as a person, because I imagine that none of you are quantum computing experts. You'll walk away from that talk being like, God, that fucking kid is so smart. He knows everything. P equals NP. And you'll be like, I don't even know what that means, but fuck yeah. And like, he's the Vitalik that I've seen over the years is he'll present things that are with utter confidence as if it's true. And I think that as Ethereum has grown, he's become this sort of character that is revered by people as a child genius and as a visionary. And I think it's really hard for a person who is a normal human being to take in this worship and to not become Kim Jong-un.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for really telling us what you think. I'm actually. So you hit him hard with that one.
It's always a punchline.
Okay. I would like to ask a question. Does anyone in the audience disagree with this man? Because I would like to hear someone disagree. Okay, so I'm looking for someone really in the Ethereum, like real deep in the Ethereum kind of ecosystem.
Anything.
All right, hold on. If you want, come up to the.
So you were talking about other chains.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. So what about you said they're all competing for the same resource, which is electricity?
Yeah. This is a good group. I like this group.
So
it's intimate. We can kiss later.
So
Or snuggle, maybe one of the two.
So what about because actually there's a lot of hardware infrastructure that goes into mining as well.
Yeah.
So what if you have an entire class of otherwise good mining infrastructure that's sort of becoming obsolete, but people still run it? What if a coin comes along or another chain comes along to capitalize on that kind of idle resource? What's the problem with that?
That's a really good question. I mean, no, right. So you're not talking specifically GPUs, right? You're saying that like there's all these older ASICs that are kind of like. You're saying that there's a. Right. So I mean, I think that there's a presumption that like you can make your algorithms like ASIC hard, or GPU hard essentially, like not ASIC hard, not GPU, like ASIC resistant. And I think that anyone who's been here long enough knows that that's kind of this it's a giant misnomer. There's no such thing as ASIC resistance. You might be able to extend that out a little bit of time, but as to like the dead hardware, I mean, I can see some arguments for it. Like for example, in Venezuela, the government is confiscating ASIC miners at the border, but because GPUs have sort of a multifaceted use, it sounds like at least recently they've been allowing GPUs in. So for people that want to mine those coins. I think that makes some sense. They can mine those GPUs, but what they're generally trying to do is convert them for Bitcoin. So I mean, I think that there might be some use case there, and I'm not saying that these shitcoins go away completely, necessarily, but I think they remain such a small portion of the value of like what the entire infrastructure is that I don't see them as being like important. To me, the non-Bitcoin coins will look a lot like Gopher.
So.
To the internet. You remember, that? Like, we have HTTP, and then we had Gopher, and Gopher was doing really well. It was, I think it was the predominant protocol for internet communication for a little bit.
I wouldn't know. But someone might be able to school you really hard on some of these facts.
believe that.
In terms of the early internet stuff, but
I'm not an
But-
early internet guy, but,
but-
I think that's true.
but we only lost about 6 people from the audience, if you notice.
Yeah.
When you went through your little Ethereum rant, I guess those people did not agree with you. They didn't want to debate.
Yeah, they're fine.
But let me ask you a quick question before I hand the mic off again. Would you say, in terms of ASIC resistance, that Monero hard forking their mining algorithm, every 6 months is an effective way to do that?
Yeah, so I've talked to Fluffy Pony about this, and I think that Monero's got some advantages in their ability to do that sort of thing because, like, right now they're small. The problem is that, like, as blockchains and their communities grow, it becomes more and more difficult to do things like that. And recently, Monero noticed that there were what looked like ASICs on their chain. So, in sort of an emergency response, what did they do? They changed the algorithm and, to basically bump the ASICs off and to go back to this like ASIC resistance sort of ethos that they launched with. And what happened is Monero split into like 7 chains. And it was a little bit, it was extremely hectic for a while. And they've sort of recovered. I think that they're back to kind of one more cohesive community. But there was a lot of fear there for a while that changing the algorithm would really sort of destroy a lot of like what Monero had built, particularly with the cohesiveness of the community, which frankly a lot of these coins really rely upon. So I think that Monero going forward is going to see a little bit more in terms of trouble if they try to make like those big changes, whether it's algorithm changes or whatever. But yeah, I think that for Bitcoin, there was never a proclivity towards ASIC resistance in the early days. It was sort of a free man, do whatever you want. This progresses wherever it progresses sort of atmosphere. And we get ASICs. Eventually you get these sort of single chip sort of devices that do exactly one function. And to me, I'm glad. I think that's really a cool sort of thing that occurred. Who would have known that anyone would have needed like single function chips to do SHA-256 all day long, billions and billions of times all over the world all the time, in the way that we've found, like who needs a 7 nanometer ASIC? It blows my mind that these are things that we've developed here, and so yeah, I mean, to your answer, I'm rambling, but to that, like I think that Monero is a cool example of a project that is attempting to do ASIC resistance in a way that is a little different, like through the hard forking.
So I proved you wrong. It's not a shitcoin.
It's still a shitcoin. Shitcoin's a nomenclature.
Let's get the next question.
So I just want to ask a question that
Yeah.
is, first I want to give an example, and the example is in Mastering Ethereum, right? Dr. Gavin Wood said Ethereum is completely centralized in the sense of we are not nowhere near what we are promoting to the public, right? So when you look at like companies like EOS, right, they have, completed the proof of stake, have a huge DApp community, and when you look at like the DApps that are circulating tokens,
I don't believe that, by the way.
I mean the facts though, right? The facts are right now they have a huge community, right? The facts.
I don't believe that there are any users using dApps.
I understand that, but I'm just saying like being
I just don't. Like,
I'm just saying being in San Francisco, right? We have these talks all the time. So I'm just saying, is our criticism speculative? Like I could review ATV and say, hey, it's a great building or it's a bad building, but if I go to the building being built across the street or next door, it's still not finished yet. So are we giving our criticism to something that is still in its stages? Because even Joe Lubin said on Twitter recently, hey, he sees the commits on GitHub, he sees people are still building, so maybe it's still early. Are we being too like hypercritical or something that isn't?
Hypercritical in the infancy of Ethereum.
Yeah. To what it's supposed to be a proof of stake anyways, as it matures.
I mean, my propensity is towards hypercriticalness all the time. I try to be a blockchain asshole. So, but like, I mean, it's not pessimism. It's an understanding of what these things do. I think most of these things don't do the things they claim. So, like, Ethereum was going to have a great dApp revolution. You ever been to dappradar.com and seen how much dApp usage there is? Go there. The biggest dApps that aren't like these decentralized exchanges have maybe 400 users per day. Maybe. There's like 3 of them that are that big. What's that?
Consensus, you said. I know you mentioned consensus.
Oh, Consensus. Consensus has 2,000 employees, I think is how many they had. There's like 13%. Yeah, they're laying off 13%, but they have more employees than there are DApp users on Ethereum.
Why are you laughing?
It's hilarious.
Why are you laughing?
It's true. There's more. It's true. There's more employees at Consensus. Even after they lay off people, there's going to be more employees there than in the top used dApps in Ethereum. I don't think for a second that EOS has more used dApps. I've not seen the evidence of that. Is it going to be like 4 people telling me that they use it? No. Where's the evidence?
We'll take it offline.
Okay, I'd like to see that. I would like to see that.
But at least we know. At least we've identified there's people that don't agree with you, which is good. Okay, so.
The world is filled with them.
Right here, we have a question right here, and then
Yeah, I was just going to ask the Bitcoin maximalists.
Yeah.
So you didn't talk about SegWit or the SegWit 2x or the fees or anything, so I just want to get your opinion on that.
Well, what specifically about the fees?
Well,
Do you mean like the prioritization function stuff, or like what do you?
well, the argument was that block size wasn't big enough, so the fees obviously they got high. So there needs to be a better scaling solution. Some people will say, and that's why they're not maximalists anymore. That's why they went to Bitcoin Cash and whatever. So
Sure.
You just didn't mention that when you were talking
Yeah.
about maximalist stuff.
So during the run up the last time, fees got way up, and fees being like transaction fees. Like if I send money to somebody else, I pay a little tip to a miner. And it's sort of a market economy where if you want your transaction to be included, you have to pay a fee that is higher than all of the other people, or so that you can fit into that block. So these fees went up in some cases, $20 to $50, right, depending on what day or time it was. I never generally had problems like in the way you're talking about Ethereum. I never really had a lot of problems getting transactions through, even for small fees. But there were plenty of stories of people that were. But that's hard because over the years, Bitcoin's changed in terms of its fee size. What do I consider a small fee? Pennies would be a small fee. I mean, it depends. If you're sending $1 billion, I would consider $12 to be a small fee. It just really depends. Yeah, like I would see Roger Ver regularly complain about sending fees and saying I had to spend $50 to get this fee through, and I'm like, okay, that's whatever, Roger. Tell me about this transaction. He never gives details about the transactions. My guess is that Roger is probably doing a transaction with huge numbers of outputs or inputs, right? And that he's probably spending $50 because I don't know. He's maybe doing an as many transaction where he's paying like 45 people or something like that. Right? He's probably batching transactions or whatever. But like my guess is that if you looked at what the nature of those transactions actually were, $50 you probably would have looked like that's really super reasonable. I don't know, but I bet you would have because $50 is never what I spent moving money during those high fee times.
Yeah, so another curious question. I think both Josh and Mike make interesting points. 2 things, really. One, why apart from this idea of competition for resources, why do these different chains have to be competitors? Why can't they be projects that are exploring different ideas for use of the data structure or for, insert whatever the case is, right? And then also, I think, relatively speaking, the industry is still very young. It's still nascent, right? And so we don't really know. We know one killer use case for it, but we don't know what it's going to be yet. And so,
but you know what it does.
That's the typical cycle that technologies go through, right? Like, so dApps.
Sure.
Any new technology doesn't have an immediate, early majority, cycle of adoption, right? It goes through innovators, early adopters, early late majority, and then laggards, right? So that's consistent on any technology. So I don't know that it's fair to kind of cast the light that you're casting in terms of, I get the idea of Bitcoin maximalism, but I don't feel like the argument is very strong in terms of
Well,
of the why.
I don't know how much of an argument I'm making as to just explaining why I myself
You're a
would
magnificent
still
troll,
consider.
but, you know.
Well, so thank you. I would consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist, but I mean, I can't think of many emerging technologies where those people who are like the initial adopters number in the tens or hundreds. Like generally, like maybe Beanie Babies, but for the most part, generally like nascent technologies. Like we generally know what a blockchain does. Most of these dApps are absolutely useless. They don't do anything interesting. There's not anything that they contribute to sort of the science of blockchain. Meanwhile, you have people working on Bitcoin and Gregory Maxwell or Adam Back who are working on things like confidential transactions. I think some projects are neat, like Grin. Grin's been working on, what's that? Mimblewimble's not implemented in Monero, but yeah. Well, right, but there's a reason though. There's a weight issue. Like the reason that it's not implemented. I mean, they're working right now on. I think it's bulletproofs that they've been talking about. Reducing the size of them because the on-chain weight is a little bit much if you were to implement current like what bulletproofs have currently. But like, yeah, I think that the science of blockchain is changing, and there's a lot of really cool things that are being done, but I don't see them being done on like CryptoKitties. I see them being done in like Adam Back, Maxwell, Peter Wola, and these other guys, Lightning Network, an amazing Dryja and whatnot. So, what's that, Mike? I like Fluffy Pony. I think Fluffy Pony is perfectly reasonable. Yep, correct. But Monero, right? Monero suffers from it's rarely used, right? So, no, yeah, that's right. But Monero doesn't have as many users as Bitcoin. It's a smaller system. They can implement more experimental features, whereas Bitcoin's got some concerns, like particularly with the size of the bulletproofs and whatnot.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. As the OG maximalist here, thank you for coming to Atlanta.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you. And I wonder, following along his question earlier, my friend over there from the meetups, about scaling.
Sure.
So let's say, at this point we still have the choked BTC. So two-part question. Number one, what is your vision for Bitcoin? And number two...
As a president of Bitcoin?
Yes. What is your vision of Bitcoin? And then number two, how will you reach that vision?
As Satoshi Nakamoto.
Oh, and number three, this might upset everyone, pardon me, but if, as you are about this one longest chain, and you say the altcoins are kind of bogus, I wonder, what if there were a coin that dominated, say, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision? Would you then be able
that's
to
a really good question.
adapt?
So
would you move with that incentive in the market, or would you just kind of be hard up about it?
So I do think the notion of like black swan events. I mean, I'm not an investor kind of guy, but like I wouldn't be surprised if something let's say there's a 1% chance that it happens or a 0.5% chance that it happens. I don't sell my forks just because I don't know what's going to happen. I just don't. Like they're free money. They sit there. I don't sell them. I just hold them. I do think that I do think that there's the possibility that any of us can be wrong at any given time, and holding my forks, hedging my risk a little bit, and yeah, I think so. But yeah, my vision for Bitcoin. My vision is that the most competent programmers would get vacuumed into Bitcoin, and the most interesting science-driven computer programmers would continue to develop on it and work hard on developing sort of the science of cryptography and furthering the protocol itself so that it's usable and efficient for everybody. I think that'd be a pretty cool world. I think that Bitcoin's very small right now. I don't think that there's a lot of people who know about it. I mean, I was looking at Stats the other day, they say that something like, I think it was 5% of Americans have bought it or something. It's very small. 2% I think have bought Ripple or have bought Ethereum, and 1% Ripple. So something like 8% of Americans own any crypto at all. And I don't know that I want like every American, like I don't need that number to be 100%, but I do think that there's some pretty cool things that Bitcoin can do, whether it's in gaming, whether it's buying luxury goods online, whether it's it's internet cash. It's awesome. And I think that Lightning Network, as that gets developed, we'll probably see a large uptake, and presuming it gets uptake, will very likely be sort of the layer one sort of onboarding layer for most people on Bitcoin. So that's my vision.
I got a very short question. Do you see any future for Ethereum Classic, and if so, to what extent?
Yeah, Ethereum Classic in a pump. No. Ethereum Classic's interesting. Like they forked from Ethereum after the DAO, and it's sort of you want to talk about nascent projects? Like it's a nascent project if there is any, and it's sitting there. I mean, is there a future? Maybe it'll be the clean chain for ICOs in the future. I don't know. It's right. Well, that's the other thing is like as Ethereum's been talking about Casper. Move into Casper, this sort of proof of stake, you got to ask yourself where all that hash power is going to go. And if they actually move to a full proof of stake system, I wouldn't be surprised if it moved into Ethereum Classic. So I don't know. Well, I mean, viability is a difficult question because I mean, the question I always ask Ethereum lovers is real simple: what are smart contracts for? What do they do? And I'll ask for examples of them. And generally what people end up describing to me are multi-sig wallets, right? And that's been sort of the same question I've asked ever since Ethereum was released, is what is this good for? Other than as a multi-sig wallet that, signs via oracles. It's not really, to me, the project has never really been that interesting. And I'm still looking for that answer. Like, if you have a good answer, I'd love to hear it.
We'll take 2 more questions.
Cool.
Wrap it up. So we'll take these 2 guys right here. And then
Perfect.
So if you want to hand the mic to them afterwards.
Shitcoin maximalist.
How would you define competent programmers? And as far as in the space, I mean,
Yeah.
I think anybody should be able to get into the space.
I agree with that. I think a competent programmer is one that wants to take over the chain via blockstream conspiracies. No, I mean, I think that what's cool about this is that, I mean, to your point, I think that any programmer should be able to get, come in here and get into Bitcoin or programming generally and learn about it. I think if you look at a lot of the programmers in Bitcoin, you have people like Peter Todd, who Peter Todd has been working on certain aspects of the consensus code for a really long time. He's contributed some really great code. I think that he did the unlock time verify code. I think that was a lot of his work. And I mean, I don't know him outside of the space. He might be an idiot, but he sure knows like a hell of a lot about this code. And I think that competency generally comes through experience. So, I mean, my understanding of a competent programmer would be one who spends a lot of time devoting themselves to really learning this code. Like, I don't know, maybe we send them to like a monastery in Tibet and they have to like sit down and try it and learn it for like 3 years before they can come out and even like, commit anything to Bitcoin. But yeah, there's plenty of people who've been here a long time who do little things, like maybe they get in and do spelling changes initially, and then they kind of dabble a little bit, and they try little changes here and there, and then eventually they get into something a little bit more difficult, and they decide to go down the long, hard road of understanding the complex cryptography that actually goes into this stuff, and they get into like weird, curves and stuff like that, and they do a really, they eventually become highly competent at one aspect, by the way, one aspect of Bitcoin or of the systems here, right? They'll oftentimes become like extremely competent about consensus code. And they'll know absolutely everything there is to know about consensus. They won't know a whole lot about like maybe the other ways that Bitcoin works, but they'll know just enormous amounts about how the consensus protocol works. So yeah, I think that's someone who's spent a lot of time with the code is.
We're going to lay a little bit on time. You can just ask this after we're done.
Sure.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so you already mentioned Beanie Babies and gaming and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Love beanies.
I guess I come from a little bit of a legal background, and I'm really interested in how potentially blockchains could incorporate Creative Commons and
Sure.
different licensing issues. And to my knowledge, I'm not that deep. I haven't dove deep into the technology in terms of how the Ethereum or Bitcoin could accommodate those. But from my general knowledge of it, Ethereum at this point is better positioned to take on that sort of responsibility through like a DApp, though.
Speak a little bit more into the
To your point, Ethereum hasn't proven to have a DApp that kind of really has a use case for it. But from just what I'm seeing, Ethereum is better suited at this point to kind of handle that. Or
Why do you think that, by the way?
because of the people that have already built the shit projects on it. I mean, they don't actually have. But that from my perspective, that is people. That's a design issue. They're not really fitting the market, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that Ethereum's got a bunch of inexperienced programmers designing crap stuff. The DAO is the best example, right?
Right.
A multi-$100 million hedge fund, VC fund that lasted a week before someone drained all of the money from it. It's hilarious if it's not sad, but it's to me it's very funny, and yeah, I mean like that's. I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean though by like, what is it poised to do in terms of like Creative Commons? Like, can we handle copyright on it or trademark?
Right, licensing issues and stuff like that. If there's any way we could incorporate, how I guess stuff like you can say, like you just mentioned gaming, like a gaming skin could be implemented from one user to the next, and
yeah. So I think that there's huge amounts of opportunity in gaming. I continue. I'm a Fortnite player.
right.
And I look at like V-Bucks, and I love Fortnite. I'm with you. The Christmas season, and I look at that, and they have V-Bucks, right? And they do V-Bucks, and they have no blockchain, right? You spend it on the game, and it just seems like they've trapped everything in their own ecosystem, and that's probably what they want, right?
Right. So I guess the only thing that's missing in that equation is someone creating something that is more open.
So, well, the question is, I mean, there are open source games. Like I've heard people talk about abandonware and stuff like that. There might be something there. I have yet to see a really great implementation in anything other than like card type games like CryptoKitties, or I've always wondered if like Magic the Gathering would like have a good application using something like counterparty technology or like these ERC20 type tokens, just whatever it is. But I think that there's some opportunity in games. I've yet to see anybody sort of take up the mantle and build something.
Well, that just about concludes it. Can we get a round of applause for Junseth real quick? Thank you. Cool. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us.
Very welcome. At Junseth.
J-U,
It's really hard.
Yeah.
At Junseth.
All right, and so the last thing we're going to do is do the raffle. Chris, if you want to come up. Yep. Hey, thanks, man. Yeah.
What's that? I know. They used to, on Skype it's Juns, Juns, and then they used to do this like weird Ethereum symbol, capitalize at the end.
Hey everybody, Chris with Protecting Coin. We're going to be giving away a Ledger Nano S. Just so you know, we are having some Christmas deals going on. Ledger Nano S's, Treasure Model 1s, Keep Keys, and Cold Cards are all on sale for $65 or 2 for $120. So that's a banging deal. But someone's going to win one for free. 215-88-55. 55. We got a winner. Well, maybe. We got to check and see. Sorry, man. I tried. You throwing it away. Maybe he didn't win.
Well, that's how it should be. It should be a random guy. But you're not a random guy. We all know you. So, hey, thank you so much. This is Chris with Protecting Coin. Make sure to check out Chris. He's got a little booth in the back. He sells hardware. He has all kinds of things for protecting your coins. So, thank you so much. We're going to go to Twin Peaks, right next door, upstairs, for more networking. You can tell Junseth why he's dumb and why all of his ideas are wrong. Let's have great discussions together, okay? Let's learn. Thanks.